Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Marc Zicree of Star Trek, Space Command, Twilight Zone Companion, etc. So, so here we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Episode 11. So there's spoilers, If you haven't watched it, don't watch this. God! so, but, um, but if you've been following my Mr. Sci-Fi commentaries on Star Trek Discovery, you know this much. Doug Jones, who stars in Star Trek Discovery, stars in Space Command, which is the big Star Trek-like show that I've been shooting, space-going show. Star Trek inspired me when I was a kid, so I'm doing my own iteration on that kind of show. So if you want to compare that with Orville or Star Trek Discovery or The Expanse, we're all sort of in the same real estate one way or another. So you can go on Mr. Sci-Fi and watch a lot of the Space Command content that I've been posting, scenes, trailers. We're now working to complete VFX and post on the first half hour, then into the first hour and onward. And I'm also pitching the show actively. So I'm having great meetings here in LA, and I'm about to fly back to London in about 2 weeks and have further meetings there. So it all continues. And we're also pursuing Magic Time as a series, which is a series of novels that I did with Barbara Hambly, etc. And so watch this space. But that's not what we're here to talk about at all. We're here to talk about Star Trek Discovery Episode 11. I've watched all of the episodes of Star Trek Discovery. In Episode 10, they went into the Mirror Universe. And this was a big episode, Episode 11, because it revealed the true nature of what happened to Vok the Klingon, and who was a character who appeared early on and then kind of vanished from the storyline, and also who the Emperor in the Mirror Universe is. Now, interestingly enough, in the Star Trek novels, it's very interesting about the Emperor of the Mirror Universe, because James T. Kirk, in the original Star Trek series, they never said what the T stood for. And in fact, in Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second Star Trek pilot, the first one to star William Shatner, they even got his initial wrong. Gary Mitchell, his friend who becomes super powered and evil through encountering the energy at the edge of the galaxy, he makes a tombstone for James Kirk that he's going to kill him and put him in this open grave, and it has a different initial. It's the wrong initial. So, but James T. Kirk, he was always calling himself James T. Kirk, but in the show you never found out what the T stood for. And then a fan said it was Tiberius, and that stuck. And Tiberius, for those of you who are history nerds, know that Tiberius is the Emperor Tiberius in the Roman Empire. So there was Julius Caesar was the first Roman Empire, then Roman Emperor, and then you had Augustus, and then you had Tiberius, and then of course Caligula, then Claudius, etc., etc., etc. So Tiberius seemed like a really cool, interesting, strange name for Kirk, with all of his the fact that he went from planet to planet, overthrowing governments and setting up what he saw as the proper government. Tiberius was a very interesting name for Kirk. So when they did the novels that took James T. Kirk, that charted Kirk through the Mirror Universe, because the Mirror Universe was established in the episode Mirror Mirror, written by Jerome Bixby on the original Star Trek. Great episode. I talked about it in the previous Mr. Sci-Fi on Star Trek Discovery Episode 10. In the novels by Garfield and Judith Reeves Stevens, when they went into the Mirror Universe, they had Kirk, the evil Kirk, ultimately become the emperor of that empire, and it was the Emperor Tiberius. So it made sense. It was fun. It had a callback to Roman history, etc. So, but in Star Trek Discovery, Kirk, of course, is not the Emperor, because Kirk is young. We aren't even into the Kirk, Spock, McCoy era on the Enterprise yet, because Star Trek Discovery takes place just before that. But they are now in the Mirror Universe, and they say, well, there's a mysterious emperor here. So I was guessing. I had, obviously it was going to be a character we'd seen before, and I was joking that it might be Captain Pike, but they've only established Captain Pike as a character in the original Star Trek and in JJ's movies. So the obvious person it really would have been, and I didn't say this because I didn't want to spoil Episode 11 before it aired, Michelle Yeoh, of course, who was Michael's captain on her initial ship. It made sense that she would be the Emperor. But again, it's just because she's the only lead character that we established on Star Trek Discovery that is gone now, is dead. So it's kind of, so one of the fans on my little Mr. Sci-Fi comments guessed that. One of the fans guessed that Vok would turn out to be this PTSD traumatized security officer that Michael is now in love with. And of course, in the previous episode, he killed the doctor. So so there is something to be said for is it problematical if the fans are able to guess major plot turns so readily? And the answer is probably yes. Um, yeah, again, I think with Star Trek Discovery, you're either going to like it or you're not going to like it, depending on where you land along a certain spectrum. And I think, I mean, people can say, well, it's not Star Trek, it's not like the shows that have gone before. For me, that's not as big an issue, simply because with every new Star Trek series, you have to find a way to shake it up. You have to find a way to make it different, to make it fresh. You're always going to be having that challenge, because if you're just doing what's gone before, it won't work. It won't work. And so, though Orville is doing a very interesting job of sort of doing Star Trek The Next Generation via Seth MacFarlane. So, and again, if you like Orville, if you like Star Trek Discovery, that's your personal call. For me, on the plus side with Star Trek Discovery, it's beautifully produced. I mean, you can quibble with the production design, but there is production design. It's clearly they're spending their money and putting it on the screen. It's $10 million per episode, and the effects are fine. It's a little leaning toward the JJ visual aesthetic rather than, say Star Trek The Next Generation or DS9 or Enterprise. But again, your call. I mean, if you hate lens flare, then you're going to have problems. But c'est la vie. But on the plus side, it's a talented cast. But again, Michael, as I said before, my friend Christina Moses, who played Sulu's daughter in Star Trek New Voyages, World Enough in Time, auditioned for the role of Michael, and I frankly think she would have been stronger. She's a wonderful actress, terrifically sensitive and strong and interesting. But, if you're a fan of Walking Dead, to see the same actress now in Star Trek Discovery, she's not bad, but she's just not great. And and I think Doug Jones's character, for me, he's just kind of doing Odo. I mean, it's very reminiscent of Odo, and I have a problem with the prey species being second in command on a starship. It's like, he's prey species. He when it's fight or flight, he wants to flee. Would you really have someone rise up that high in Starfleet with that wiring? I don't know. It seems like it was like they said, well, why don't we have it be a prey species? There's a novel called The Sparrow that deals with an evolved prey species, and it's a terrific book. It's a very, very dark book, but very well written, and you might want to check it out. It's but so in terms of Star Trek Discovery, I love the Mirror Universe. Mirror Universe stories are fun, but the thing that really sticks with you in terms of Star Trek Discovery is it seems to be going over terrain we've seen in Star Trek before, and it's not for it's in a way, the Orville is commenting more on the modern day than Star Trek Discovery is, it seems to me, and certainly a show like Black Mirror is commenting on very much on the modern day, and we'll see what Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone does. I'm going to be interviewing him for the new Twilight Zone companion, so that should be a very interesting conversation in the near future. But in terms of Star Trek Discovery, I find it entertaining. I find it interesting. I'm not moved emotionally by it as much as I'd like to be, and because I don't know. We'll see. I think it's better than it was when it started, but when we discover that her boyfriend is Vok, and suddenly he's the Klingon, and he's trying to kill her, and he's not conflicted anymore. It's like so I guess that security officer human personality was just kind of a spray-on personality. It would have been nicer if that was actually kind of some variant of Vok, where when he was a Klingon, when he realizes he's a Klingon, he's still conflicted. It would have been much more interesting to play that. But of course they haven't killed him. We'll see where it goes. But it's it all remains to be seen. And Michelle Yeoh, in the next episode, obviously she'll be dealing with Michael, and she'll be the Emperor. We'll see how that goes. It's not a bad show. It's not a bad show. It's not the great show we would hope it would be. But again, time will tell. But for me, some people hate the Mirror Universe. For me, it's like, okay, this is more fun than before. With people trying to kill her and knife fights in the elevator and all of that, turbo lift. We'll see. So that's sort of it for now. It's a little, I'm sorry if I'm seeming a little bit more like, well, I don't know. You tell me. But I think that's how I feel about Star Trek Discovery. It's a good show. It's a worthy show. It's not a terrible show. I mean, certainly they haven't totally screwed things over the way. I mean, I should say the way The Last Jedi did. I mean, I don't mean to badmouth The Last Jedi, but if you're a fan of Luke Skywalker, certainly their take on Luke Skywalker is not what we would want him to be, I think, or at least what I'd want him to be. I'd want him to be brave, noble, really the guy that we saw in those first 2 or 3 films, where he really was heroic rather than just kind of burnt out and weary, you know. So we'll see. I think sometimes, and this may be a difficulty that Discovery is having as well, because sometimes when you're trying to do something new, you say, well, let's do the reverse of what's been done before. And in doing the reverse of what's been done before, sometimes it's not as dramatically strong as what was done before, because what was done before worked on dramatic terms. So, but that said, look, every critic in the world is of less value, in my opinion, than anyone who actually makes something new, something fresh. And again, I know that includes me. So if I were just commenting on other people's work, ultimately that's just talk. And you know, for instance, we all know what Casablanca is. Name one person who reviewed Casablanca. Maybe you can if you're a real film nut, but you know, James Agee was a film critic, but he also was a great film writer. Francois Truffaut was a writer about film, but then he was a great director. So I guess my point about all of this would be, if you are complaining about the stuff you're seeing, if you ever want to be a writer or a director, a producer, an actor, to grab your phone, shoot something, not just commenting on other people's work, but make stuff. Because for, you know, even Ed Wood, even Plan 9 from Outer Space, you know, that's a guy who had a vision, who went and tried to do something, and maybe he succeeded, maybe he failed, but he created something. And the fact that it's lasted in its odd way speaks to the artistic impulse. So again, I think this is my way of saying that I may have my opinions, a million people may have their opinions, but at least Star Trek Discovery is taking bold choices, doing things, making something, and it doesn't in any way, shape, or form diminish what's gone before. If you don't like Star Trek Discovery, you can watch the original Star Trek. If you don't like the original Star Trek, watch Star Wars or any number of other things, or go out and like have a life. so that's it for now. Mr. Sci-Fi will be continuing these videos. I'm having a lot of fun sharing my opinions with people, and tell your friends to subscribe yourself. There's tons of these videos now talking about everything. If there's something you want me to talk about, someone was saying I should do a video about The Expanse. I will. My friend Marc, oh God, I'm drawing a blank. I know too many Marks. But you know, my friends are showrunners on that, and so I'm happy to talk about it. Narain Shankar and Mark and his partner Hawk Ostby. So we'll definitely get to that. And I've been reading all the Expanse novels, so this is actually a subject I know a fair amount about. So that's it. Marc Zicree. If you want to find out more about Space Command, you can also go to spacecommandseries.com. You can pledge there on, there's a little PayPal button now on the website, and you can also go to Patreon and pledge. And something I'm going to do on Patreon soon, by the way, is the people who are sending me money via Patreon aren't getting anything, so we're going to have a survey of those people and see what of my career they're fans of, and then we'll start sending them on a monthly basis something cool. Like, so for instance, if they were fans of Smurfs, I might send them a script I wrote for Smurfs, you know, like a PDF of a Smurfs script, or a Sliders outline, or you know, something from Space Command or whatever. So we'll get into all of that in the near future. But thanks, and always good hearing from you. Love the comments, and we'll talk again soon. Take care. Bye bye.